Next up today is Mr. Jim Fries. Jim is a success-based executive with over 25 years of experience building medical device and diagnostic companies. He became CEO of RX360 in February of 2018. Jim's dedication to healthcare supply chain security and patient safety has always been his personal mission. His personal vision, coupled with the RX360 mission, brings a wealth of awareness and success to all RX360 members and to the industry as a whole. He will speak to us today about meeting the quality challenge, in particular, how to use remote auditing now and post COVID-19. So let me introduce to you Mr. Jim Fries. Perfect.
Hi, this is Jim Fries from RX360. It's an absolute pleasure to be joining you here at the annual meeting for ISIA, and could not be more excited about talking to you about a topic that really is kind of, in my mind, really kind of been absorbed by the industry during COVID-19. But what, in my mind, what people are really looking for is what's going to happen with remote and virtual auditing post the global pandemic. Is it still going to be here? Is it still going to become part of our auditing world? And really what I want to do today is provide you a short introduction to that mindset, and then really on the back end be able to answer any questions, be able to follow up with anybody that's online, and really be able to continue the education and awareness around this particular part of our industry. So again, thank you very much for joining me today. It's an honor to be here. And so with that, why don't we begin? Again, I think when we look at the idea of remote or virtual audits, we really want to look at it from a perspective of, was this something temporary, or is it something that's really going to be around for quite a while? Some of the key things that I'll talk to you about today really are kind of what we've done here at RX360. And for those of you that don't know who we are an international nonprofit dealing with patient safety, dealing with supply chain integrity. We'll talk about some of the things that we've done in regards to a best practice remote audit guide that we've kind of put together. Let's look at some key terms, because there are terms that people use that really we need to become more universal in our terms around remote auditing. What are some of the models? There's a tremendous amount of models out there. And from a best practice perspective, I'll talk to you a little bit about the ones that have been most impactful in the industry. IT capability is huge when it comes to remote audits. And then obviously we'll talk about some next steps. Again, RX360 is dedicated to patient safety, quality of the supply chain, the materials, and really our mission every day is working with our membership to make sure that we live up to this mission. RX360, through our membership, was able to work towards building not only a foundational best practice guide, but really a series of guides and a series of as I would describe, video presentations that really revolve around remote auditing. It's a huge awareness building. It's a huge individual educational building, because everybody's models are different. And I really think this is an opportunity for our industry to look more closer on how we can share best practices. So when we look at key terms, there's a couple of things I really want to kind of zero in here on, is actually, believe it or not, there is a difference between remote auditing and a virtual audit. Everybody uses these terms interchangeably, but in reality, they're not. You can see here on the screen, I have some definitions, but what we try to talk about, not only in the scope of this presentation here, but in regards to the best practice guides that we've done, is this idea of remote auditing. And benefits of a remote audit are very simple to me. They're allowed to take place when travel is not possible, huge in our pandemic environment right now. You can look at things that are urgent. You can have a little bit more of a flexible schedule, and you can still do a full doc review with or without the folks at the supplier site. So I'm not going to say it saves time, because we've actually seen where in some cases it doesn't. In some cases, it actually may take longer. But there's opportunities to continue to do the deep dives that you've done in association with a normal on-site audit. So again, I think there's things that are equivalent to an on-site audit. There's things that maybe we have to be a little bit more diligent about. But there's also things within a remote model that allow us to actually be more specific. So to me, and this will be a theme throughout today, is I actually don't think that remote audits are going anywhere post the pandemic. I think they're here to stay. They're going to be part of everyone's kind of annual audit plan. And to me, that's very exciting, because it just helps us ensure quality of pharmaceutical materials as we continue to move through this spectrum. Some of the challenges that we see in remote audits, I just talked to you about some of the benefits, but some of the challenges are, just the idea of not being there on site, not being able to touch and feel what you're auditing. That's a big deal, because in many cases that gets to the point of actually developing that final audit report and being able to use that experience of seeing things firsthand in person. So that is a little bit of a limitation. Not all audit types are really kind of transferable to this. We've seen some challenges with API audits, and it's really due to the complexity of manufacturing systems. I'll also throw in there when a supplier site or an auditee maybe expands their plant operations or brings in a new type of line that they're producing material on. That's another thing that really could be suitable for just an on-site audit. Regulators might not view remote audits as a reasonable alternative. Now, that is not a be-all end-all statement. I think the key term there is may not, and we've seen it both ways. And to me, that's something that I would stress to each and every one of you, that if you are utilizing a remote audit for any type of regulatory filing, make sure that you're communicating with that regulatory body to make sure that the information you're providing is going to be accepted. And then again, I think the big thing is, what is that communication portal going to be? How is it going to be viewed? Does it work? Is it a win-win for all parties? We'll get into a little bit here, some of the IT capabilities you have to look at. But again, is everybody on the same page in regards to what the audit plan is? Is everybody on the same page of how to move forward? We have many different types of remote auditing that we look at. We've kind of narrowed it down at RX360 into two forms. Full remote audit, which is where we conduct the entire audit remotely. And we do a lot of pre-work when it comes to that. The other piece is what I would refer to as kind of an 80-20 model, which is pretty simple actually to understand. It's when you need to get that audit done. The majority of the audit can be done when you look at it from a perspective of remote, but there might be some things that you still have to see in person on site. And what we have been doing is actually scheduling two audit dates, one for the remote portion, and then one when that facility or auditee site opens back up, we have the ability to go back in, see the remaining 20% in person, and then wrap up the entire final audit report. I cannot stress enough when dealing with remote auditing or the 80-20 rule, pre-audit surveys, pre-audit questionnaires, pre-planning is incredibly important because you don't have that opportunity to be with somebody in person on site and really be able to pivot, to be able to adjust to certain things that you see. So pre-planning, incredibly important. IT capability. Obviously, you have an audit sponsor or an auditor, you have the supplier site, everybody has to be on the same page to what works. Do we have proper bandwidth? Does everybody have applications that work? Does everybody have an agreed upon platform that they want this to be used on? So again, that communication between those two things are incredibly important. Security and confidentiality, whatever platform you are going to use for the remote audit, please make sure it's secure, make sure it's confidential. We all want to protect our own IP. We want to protect the way that we do things. So make sure that it's secure. It truly is a collaborative effort, like I mentioned in the first bullet point. When you are conducting the audit from an auditor perspective, take breaks, minimize your distractions. It is a whole different ballgame when you're doing a remote audit. The level of concentration in my mind actually goes up from an emotional perspective. So again, pay attention to how you're doing it, take breaks, minimize those distractions. It's important. It's also important to know that there's a learning curve. Somebody that sits down and does a remote audit for the very first time, their scope of how to do it is going to be much different from when they get 10 or 12 of them under their belt. And in many cases too, look at remote audits from a pilot perspective. Maybe even do some practice runs internally in regards to how your company would handle a remote audit. All of these capabilities around IT is incredibly important because that remote interface is what's going to make or break your audit. We talk about next steps, and again, to me, something incredibly important. Remote auditing is here to stay. It's not leaving. I think if I had to predict, I think a lot of biomanufacturers, people that are utilizing remote audit models now, they're going to continue to use them, but they might use them for some secondary suppliers, some tertiary suppliers, but still want to do those on-site audits for their primary suppliers. But the model's not going anywhere. So I think we have to continue to get better at it. Best practices are always going to be evolving. So again, I would actually encourage you. Yes, there's going to be a ton of best practice information out there in the industry to get information from. But what I would suggest is keeping your own internal best practice guide. What works for your organization? What works for the people that you're auditing? If you can pay attention to your own best practices, improve on that, your risk will go down. You'll be able to incorporate some of your learnings from industry best practices and really build a robust platform for yourselves. Again, I mentioned it on the last slide, but the learning curve could be steep. But by doing remote audits, your ability and your core competency and your expertise will really accelerate quickly. I've seen it firsthand, and it's something that I think you have to be patient in the early days. But again, that acceleration happens quickly, and it happens by doing. I'm a big learning by doing type of person, and this really is something that by doing remote audits, you by organically will become better. So again, keep that in mind. Very, very important. And again, I just talked about in the second bullet point about that foundation. Build your own foundation. What do remote audits mean to my organization, and how can I best utilize them? What's my best ROI on doing this? I've seen some suppliers out there that have really cleared their calendar and tried for a very short time to move to that remote audit to get their organization more integrated into that style, knowing that they're ultimately going to go back to on-site audits. But if they can't let people into their facilities right now because of restrictions, there are no other options, and they want to keep that supply chain moving. They want to keep everybody happy. This is my contact information. You can always reach out to me. It's something that I try to pride myself on as being a resource for the industry. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. It's something that I actually enjoy talking to people that are interested in this topic. So again, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always readily available. Or again, if you'd like to actually formally set up a time to talk, more than happy to do that. To kind of recap too, and again, thank you for the ISIA for this opportunity. I wanted to kind of really approach this from a standpoint of giving you that quick snapshot overview of remote auditing, and really be able to answer questions in kind of the follow-up and that type of thing. But again, just to kind of cap some things that are important. Make sure that you're looking at remote auditing as a collaboration between yourself and really the things that you're working with your supplier, or if you're on the supplier side, working with your biomanufacturer. Being able to collaborate, planning, probably the most important thing, and being patient in the early days. So again, those are, if I had three takeaways, that's what they would be. Patience, learn by doing, and really being collaborative with everybody that's involved. So again, I want to thank you. I know this was almost like a short TED Talk type of overview, but that was my goal here today. I really want to be able to interact with you in a Q&A session. So please have your questions ready. I'm here for your disposal. And again, thank you very much.